You're listening to the Courage Hotline podcast. I'm your host, Candace Doby, leadership development strategist, courage coach, speaker, and author. And on this show, I take real questions from professionals who are stuck in a swirl of fear, doubt, and hesitation. Then I give them candid, coded advice and practical strategies to help them check their fear, conjure their courage, and tackle their peskiest professional problems. Whether you're navigating workplace politics, speaking up in high-stakes meetings, or just trying to bet on yourself, you're in the right place. We're back for another episode of the Courage Hotline podcast, and we have a new caller with a new challenge, so let's get right into it.
Hi, Candace. So my question is about cultivating courage to really uplift and steward my work in the way that I know it deserves. I am a coach and healing therapist, and when I'm doing the work, when I'm with my clients and receive their feedback, I know that the work is valuable and makes deep impact. I know that I'm great at what I do. What I struggle with is really bringing visibility to the work, promoting myself, and placing myself out there in the public sphere, whether that's online or in community spaces, to present and sell the work that I do. It really brings up uncomfortable feelings, and yet I know that's the only way to create more visibility and to let people know that they can work with me and how to do that. So my question is, how do I really generate a strong foundation of courage to promote myself in an authentic and clear way and honor the work that I do and the impact that I have by not letting this fear or challenge around image and the changes in the online and social media sphere affect that. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you for this question. And more so than just a plain old thank you. Thank you for your vulnerability. Thank you for being honest. And I have to imagine that you are in a position that many high integrity, high impact professionals find themselves in. What I hear you saying is, Candace, I am confident in the work. It's just harder for me to shine a light on the work. And so I hear you, I see you. And one of the first questions that's coming up for me that I think is important for us to look at, and this, I'm going to ask you 3 questions. And these 3 questions are part of the Courage Ready model that I have, that I use, that I share with audiences, with my clients. And really, the Courage Ready model is about being in a position to be ready to act courageously. So that's what we really are looking for. That's what professionals want. That's what I want. That's what we need. We don't really know when moments are going to surface and, present themselves for us to engage with, to act courageously. We don't know when those moments are going to come. So what we want to be is we want to be ready. So this is the Courage Ready model. And the first question that is a part of that model, which I think really would benefit us exploring for just a little bit, is what is the risk? What is the risk of you putting yourself out there, of you becoming more visible and shining a light on your work? Now, I'm going to assume, right, that you're probably thinking about the downside of risk. Like, if I take action and things turn out terribly wrong, what is that risk to me? And for entrepreneurs, for creatives, for professionals at a whole, one of the risks when we put our own work out there, when we are putting something out there that we've created, one of the biggest risks is the risk of judgment. Like, we are afraid, and I'm saying we because I'm putting myself in this category, but we are afraid of having our work be seen, be interpreted, be, consumed and ingested by other people, and then being judged negatively or harshly for it. So if I had to guess, maybe that's something you're thinking about or dealing with is the fear of judgment. It could also look like, well, what if I put myself out there and I fail? Or what if I am rejected? Or what if people think what I'm talking about is silly and I am humiliated or ridiculed in some way? So these are the risks that often show up when we are thinking about taking courageous action. So these risks are usually what have us hemmed up in the corner, not wanting to move forward because we are wired for self-preservation. And so if this is at the forefront of your mind and if this is what you're thinking about, I get it. We are human and that makes sense. But the reason why we ask ourselves the question, what is the risk, at the bottom, at the foundation of this model to get courage ready, is because there is always more than one side of risk. So yes, there is going to be the risk of taking action, but the other side of that risk is, what is the risk if you don't? What is the risk if you don't put yourself out there? If you don't shine a light on your work? If you don't become more visible? What is the risk there? Now, before we share what some of those risks are, I'm just going to take it back maybe to elementary or middle school, maybe even high school, because the relationship that we're often taught to make between the negative and the positive, or the pros and the cons, we're taught to make the comparison between risk and gain. What is the risk if I do this? What is the risk? What am I going to lose if I do this? And then we oftentimes look at, well, what will I gain if I do this? What is the benefit? And if you were to answer that question, then you might say, okay, well, maybe more people will know about my work. The gain is that, yeah, I'm out there on social media and I wasn't previously out there. But when you stack gains up against those very real, visceral, automatic, in terms of how quickly we can think about the downside of risk, rejudgment, rejection, isolation, those benefits don't even stack up. You would need to have literally 5 times the list of benefits for them to even compare to the list of risks. And so that's why with this Courage Ready model, we don't compare when we're taking social risk. We don't compare risk to benefits. What is going to be more helpful for you, caller, is for you to think about, what is the risk if I do, and what is the risk if I don't? And that risk looks like, I don't get to share this work as broadly as it needs to be shared. This work doesn't get to reach the people who most need it. The risks look like I don't get to personally understand and access the fullness of my potential because I'm keeping myself behind the curtain or behind closed doors. The risk is postponement of progress. The risk looks like perpetuation of the status quo, underdeveloped confidence, and the risk looks like regret. So you want to and need to ask yourself, what is the risk if I don't? What is the risk if I don't get myself out there? And that's going to give you a more well-rounded picture of risk. So that's the question that I want you to think about. And if you need to write it down, I'm going to invite you to write down both sides of risk. Because the one side of risk that you're thinking about now, which is all the terrible things that could happen, those risks are leading you to protect yourself from something. And it's protecting you from social harm. Only looking at that side of risk is also doing something else. It's also preventing you from something. And it's preventing you from having the level of impact that you want, that your community needs, that your client needs, that this world needs. All right, so what is the risk? The second question that I want you to ask yourself is, well, what is your reason for taking the risk? So if you're going to put yourself out there, if you're going to expose yourself to potential rejection and humiliation and isolation and those things, then we really need to have a great reason to do it. And the definition that I like using for courage, it comes from researcher Dan Putman, who's a courage researcher, but he describes courage as, courage is a choice to face a risk for a worthy purpose. So when we take risk, like putting yourself out there, like becoming more visible, like raising your hand and saying, look at my work, here is my work. The risk is all the things we mentioned, but what is your reason? Have you clarified the reason that you would ever expose yourself to the risks? So when we talk about reasons, there are really only two main reasons that we take action. And those reasons are either we're going to be externally motivated to take an action. So you're going to be externally motivated to put yourself on the socials, to put yourself on video. You're going to be externally motivated, meaning you're looking for likes and mentions and shares. You're looking for someone to validate you and hype you up and say, good job. And when it comes to taking courageous action, we cannot take the actions and move forward for primarily external motivations. Like external motivations just are not steady and sturdy enough for us to walk on, especially if this is an action that is risky for you. You are going to be navigating through discomfort and uncertainty, and you can't rely on an external motivation to get you through that. So the other option is to be internally motivated. And when we are internally motivated, we are doing things that are hard and risky and uncomfortable because they are values aligned, because we are working towards mastery and autonomy and purpose. So I am going to ask you, yes, it's scary. Yes, it's risky. Yes, it makes you feel uncomfortable and there's a lot of fear about putting yourself out there. But what is the reason that you would do it? What is that reason? And I want you to clarify that reason for yourself. It could be because you have a value of self-care, of personal excellence. You have a value of people really accessing their potential, or maybe it's integrity, or maybe it's self-respect. You're a healing therapist. So what are your reasons for wanting to be more visible on social media? That's an exercise that you can do too. You can think about it, of course, but then we've just got a lot of thoughts rolling around in our head. So what's better is that we get them out of our head and put them on paper. So that's the next question or next homework assignment, so to speak, that I'm going to give you or share with you is, write down your top 3 values. What are they? And can you connect those values to putting yourself out there and making yourself more visible? Because courage is a choice to face a risk for a worthy purpose. The last question is this: what are your resources to persevere through the risk? So we know you might put yourself out there and you might be rejected. You might be judged. You might be ridiculed. All of those things are on the table. All of those things can happen. But remember, we're going to put ourselves out there because we have a worthy purpose. The other thing we need are resources to help us persevere through the risk if things go sideways. So if those less than ideal outcomes actually do happen and people in the comments are saying, not so sure about this, then what are your resources to persevere through the risk? And the resources that are really important to courage are competence and confidence. Now, the way that you build your competence, there are many ways. You can look at other competent people who are doing the thing that you want to do, and you can model them. You can, study in a book. These are ways to increase your know-how. Competence is a combination of skill, ability, proficiency, and knowledge. And if we are going to be more proficient in putting ourselves out there, then you got to do it. You got to practice. You got to take small risks and do the thing. That's how we build competence. And when we build our skill and ability, we in effect will build our confidence. All right. So confidence comes after building our competence. And I can tell you that really, I feel like the most impactful and effective way that you can do that is to practice. You got to do it. So now let's talk about maybe how you do it. The first thing is this: why don't we try on for size reframing visibility? Because I'm getting the sense that when you think about visibility, it's you putting yourself out there and you've put yourself at the center of this potential action or this thing that you want to do. So because you've put yourself at the center, you're thinking about, well, what if I don't sound right online, like in a video that I post online? Or what if, I say something or I share a client win, but people really don't think it's a win. So we start really thinking about us in the center. And we don't belong in the center. You, as a coach, as a healing therapist, you don't belong in the center. Me, as a person who talks about courageous communication and courageous leadership, I don't belong in the center. What belongs is your work. Your work belongs in the center. And so if we were to take ourselves out of the center and put our work in the center, then we can reframe visibility as visibility is not about ego. It is not about vanity. Visibility is about service. It's about you serving your clients and potential clients. It's about you connecting them to information and ideas that they need to heal themselves. So visibility is service. Visibility is not vanity or ego. That's the first reframe that I want you to think about. It's not about being braggadocious. It's not about saying, look at me. It's about shining a light on the work. The next thing that I want to say here and that I want to end with is, how can we take risk? Like, what is the strategy or approach or process for taking risks? If this is something that is scary, and it is because you said it, then we don't have to go from 0 to 100. We don't have to go from 0, you not being online at all, to you now creating some kind of course or some big initiative that requires a lot of time, energy, and effort. And there's more feelings around, if this fails, what does that mean for me? If this fails, then I will be a failure. We don't need to go that far. We can start with small risks. So the first thing you might want to do is just share a client win. And you don't maybe even have to be on video when you do it. Maybe it's all text. So you don't have to put your face on the socials just yet. Maybe you start with sharing a client win, or you start with introducing yourself and just saying who you are and the work that you do without going into really deep specifics. Maybe you show up and you don't really share a lot about the work, but you share more about who you are, where you've been, and what led to the work, what led to you doing the work. Maybe these are some, lower scale, lower consequence, let's say, entry points for you to start putting yourself out there. So a great way to start taking more risks is to start small. It is to start with the things that are inconsequential, that if you messed up, it wouldn't hurt that much. Start with those things. And when you start having successful attempts at the small risks, then you can add on to those successful attempts with larger risks. So treat this as a process, just like courage is a process. And then I think you will find that visibility, it's not about ego, it's not about vanity, it is about your service. It is about your work and your impact at the center of what it is you are trying to do. So I hope that helps. And if you start to be more visible online, here's what I would love. I would love for you to write back into the show or call into the show and let us know how it's going. Want to take up more space at work without second guessing yourself? Join the Risk Fitness Club, my private community for ambitious professionals like you who are ready to speak up, step up, and show up courageously every single day. We're talking live workshops, expert-led trainings, and a crew that roots for you and your bold moves. Head to CandaceDoby.com to learn more and get on the list. It's time for some courage candy. These are the bite-sized insights on courage that you can put in your back pocket or tuck away in your purse and pull them out whenever you need a taste of courage motivation. If you know your work is impactful, you've seen it transform lives, shift mindsets, create healing, then hiding it doesn't serve anyone. Not you, not your clients, not the people who are silently scrolling looking for someone just like you. We often think that visibility is about ego, that promoting ourselves is somehow performative or attention seeking. But here's the truth. Visibility is not about showing off. It is about showing up. It's an act of service. It's how people who need your voice, your guidance, your solution, it's how they find you. And if you're struggling with being seen, here's a small but mighty reframe. Don't promote yourself for validation. Promote your work to help someone take one step closer to the transformation they've been craving. When you shrink your visibility, you shrink your impact, and you were built for more than that. Want to be more confident speaking up at work? Start by taking one intentional risk a day. That's what the Risk a Day Challenge is all about. 21 days, 21 risks to help you build the habit of courageous action. No fluff, just movement. If you're ready to train your courage like a muscle, head to CandaceDoby.com and check out the challenge. That's it for today's call on the Courage Hotline podcast. If you got something out of this episode, then be sure to share it with a friend or a colleague who could use a boost of courage. And if you've got your own professional challenge that you want me to weigh in on, visit CandaceDoby.com and leave me a message. The Courage Hotline is written by Candace Doby, produced by Karam Pimpale, music by Lamar Shirley, and production assistance from Monica Dulay.